Okay, we're going to start now and talk about the art of the ancient Near East. Many people are familiar on the most basic level of the cradle of civilization, and that's basically what we're going to be talking about today. In the wake of the Neolithic Revolution. I'm sorry, I guess this is going to stay on. This is kind of annoying to me, but let's just try it for today, okay? Anyways, where am I? Okay, yeah. After the Neolithic Revolution occurs and there is a shift to an agricultural lifestyle, we're going to see civilization in Mesopotamia is going to really thrive. This is known as the land between two rivers. The two rivers referred to are the Tigris and the Euphrates River. And the area is known as the Fertile Crescent, which basically is the area of modern-day Iraq, areas of Turkey and Syria. About 5,000 years ago, people in the Near East and in Egypt are going to begin to lay the foundations for Western civilization. They are going to do this with great technological advancement in the arena of agriculture. These people are going to be able to implement irrigation to maintain their crops by digging drainage ditches. They are going to invent the plow, the wheel, are going to also continue and ultimately develop language. This, of course, is the reason that we know of them today, and they are our first literate society. Here I am showing you some pictographs. This is the system of writing that the Sumerian people who lived in this region are going to create, and it is called cuneiform. You can see here that what begins as recognizable symbols is going to become further and further abstracted, and this is how language is going to be born, written language. Similarly, Chinese characters are evolved in the similar way towards the abstract forms that they have today. Here I'm showing you the soft clay tablet upon which they would use a stylus, a sharp instrument, to incise the pictographs upon. They have left us thousands of these tablets that have been and are in the process of being translated. They were extraordinary bureaucrats, and most of the documentation on the tablets are who owned what, kind of bureaucratic detail, rather than literature. Although they did write the first epic literary work, which is the Epic of Gilgamesh. This is the story of a king who searched for eternal life and is going to go on a long, perilous journey for this in this search. Yes?
Was that written on his as well, like a series of them?
Oh yeah, we're going to get to that too. Yeah. Kind of interestingly, he goes through all these adventures. Of course, Odysseus, this type of thing is based on the Epic of Gilgamesh. He is ultimately going to search the world and then is going to return to the city of Uruk, where he is going to ultimately attain immortality by inscribing his story on the walls of his city, and thus his immortality will be achieved. And here I am showing you a slide of what remains of the ancient city of Uruk, the home of King Gilgamesh. And that large mountainous form that you see there is what remains of the great white ziggurat of Uruk. This was an extraordinary site that was written about. It dates to about 3000 BCE, very, very ancient. And it has this mountainous form which was quite significant to the Sumerians. These ziggurats symbolize the concept of the sacred mountain that would link heaven and earth. And mountains had important significance to the Sumerians. It was the source of life where all waters would run from. So they basically recreated these mountainous forms in these ziggurats. There was no stone or timber in the area, so builders used mud bricks and constructed these large mountains. Thus they're quite fragile, and we can see they haven't really weared over time. Gilgamesh's city is going to grow over time to a large metropolis with 50 to 80,000 residents living there. They're going to build a very sophisticated agricultural-based society, and the ziggurat, particularly the temple on top of the ziggurat, was basically the center of Sumerian life. The temple, which was would have been on the very top here, was something that was reserved only for elites and priests. The actual civilization was all around the ziggurat. Inside of the temple that was dedicated to the Sumerian sky god Anu, who was the chief deity for the Sumerians, would be a central hall, which was called a cella. And this is where an altar would be held, and also precious objects that would be left as offerings to the gods, and also oftentimes a sculpture of the god himself. This was particularly significant for the Sumerians because they believed that the god could actually come and inhabit the sculpture, and this is what the priests would wait for, was these moments of where the god would descend to earth. The actual name White Ziggurat comes from the fact that the temple was covered in gypsum plaster, which was a very light color, which would make the temple appear almost like a mirror reflection when seen from afar, so kind of a high glistening gleam when seen from afar. And these were kind of extraordinary in size and scale compared to anything around it, so it had this quite extraordinary effect. Here is an example of a head, a female head, that was found in Uruk. This is marble believed to be the goddess Inanna. Inanna was the Sumerian goddess of love and war, and the most important female deity of the Mesopotamian history. She was known as a fearsome god, one that required many offerings made to her. And in fact, every year, the Sumerian king would undergo a ritualized wedding to Inanna, where many gifts were made to her as kind of a fertility rite. Here we see in this conception of her face, this kind of beautifully modeled, individualized face. The eyebrows and the eyes are left empty. They originally would have been filled with precious metals or with bright coloration. And this is typical of the Sumerian work, to have that kind of unibrow effect with the eyebrows meeting together in the middle. On the right is another extraordinarily important object found within the temple in Uruk. This object is known to us today as the Warka vase. Warka is the current present-day name of the city of Uruk. And this object is important for many reasons. I want to look at it more closely. It is made of alabaster and dates to about 35,000, around about the same time as Uruk, 32 to 3000 BCE, making it extraordinarily ancient. and it's about 3 feet high, made of alabaster, which is a form of that gypsum mineral that is found widely through this region in the world. It was believed to have been an object for offerings that would be placed in the temple. This one believed to be dedicated to Inanna. The actual iconography of the work has been carefully studied. And part of the reason it's so important is that it represents the first narrative composition relief sculpture. Basically, that elements of this work have been arranged in such a manner as to tell a story. As you can see, I mean, this is a big jump from the kind of pictograph that we've seen previously in the walls of Qtal Khayak. Here we see that the information has been broken down into 3 clear registers, beginning here at the bottom, here, and then up at the top. And it's believed that these registers, the story that it might be telling, may be indeed that ritual in which Inanna is married to this Sumerian king. Because you see at the very top here, the figure of, it's believed to be of Inanna here accepting gifts, and this large figure in front of her, perhaps the king himself looking onward as the gifts are handed over to her. I want to draw your attention to the base of the vase. Here we see at the bottom register a wavy line indicating perhaps the river, the waters of the region that is the life-giving source. And from it grow plants, specifically barley has been identified, but so has the other plants, pomegranate and silphium. These plants are associated with aphrodisiacs, particularly silphium, which was an abortifacient herb that basically controlled fertility. And so this would support the idea that this was indeed associated to this fertility ritual. Upon the plant forms are the ewes and rams, the sheep that of course are the meat source for the population. And then in the middle register here we see naked servants who bear large platters of food as they are processing to make offerings to the goddess who appears at the top of the vase. And here we see her accepting these with all of the gifts laid out behind her. The information is clear to read, right? We have a baseline, a standard ground line being used. This is the first time that we see it used in this way to organize a narrative like this. We can see that the Sumerians use this very flat, shallow space. There's not a real sense of kind of three-dimensionality going on here. But it's a pretty important step forward in the organization of information in a work of art. Kind of sadly, when the whole kind of debacle was going on in Iraq at the beginning of the Iraq War, you might recall that the Baghdad Museum was kind of stormed by the population there, and unfortunately the Vorka vase was stolen during that raiding of the museum, along with other many important treasures from the Sumerian world. It was returned months later, broken into millions of pieces in the back of a car, and so the process is now taking place where they're trying to reconstruct the work of Ace, but gives you an idea of what was lost in that raiding, and how important these these pieces are for really all of us, all of humankind. Yeah.
The lighter spot of the base, was that just?
Yeah, that's a portion of it has been. We don't have to be all the way sad that it was brought to pieces because it had been broken previously.
The top part though, not the bottom part?
Yeah, parts of it. And parts of it have been broken, and we're seeing that here. Yeah. And that's going to be typical of a lot of the work that we see, and sometimes it's always a issue in conservation as to what extent do they fill in portions that have been lost. Sometimes curators will determine that it is a better choice to actually fill in. That was